This podcast is brought to you by the Leonard Transportation Center and is the distillation of a 2010 research paper entitled New York City's Congestion Pricing Experience and Implications for Road Pricing Acceptance in the United States. The author of this paper is Bruce Schaller of the New York City Department of Transportation.
You know, I'd love to save the planet and solve global warming, lower my carbon footprint, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and all that, but really, what's in it for me?
This research looks at the implications of New York City's experience with public acceptance of road pricing nationally, including both congestion pricing and mileage-based fees. These fee models are widely seen as the long-term future of transportation finance. If it had passed, New York City would have joined Singapore, London, and Stockholm as the fourth large city charging drivers an entry fee into the city core. Introduced on Earth Day in April 2007, New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg's sustainability plan included initiatives designed to make New York City's air the cleanest of any major U.S. city, reduce greenhouse gas emissions 30% by the year 2030, and achieve a state of good repair for the city's streets and mass transit system. Polls showed that residents overwhelmingly backed this proposal by a 67 to 27% margin, provided, however, that the money was indeed used for expanded transit service. What really caught the public's attention was the congestion pricing provision that would charge $8 a day to motorists driving into Manhattan. In spite of the additional fees, support for this proposal was widespread. The strongest support was in Manhattan itself, the borough least dependent on autos but standing to gain the most in terms of improvements. The most vocal opposition came from elected officials and civic groups in the four New York City boroughs outside Manhattan, the boroughs most dependent on their cars and with the least mass transit access into Manhattan. The proposal was subject to intensive citywide debate and discussion over the subsequent 12 months. By the end of this period, a majority of city council members voted to support a modified plan proposed by a state commission, and the state senate was ready to do the same. Nevertheless, inaction by the New York State Assembly meant that the legislature did not adopt authorizing legislation by an April 2008 federal funding deadline, funding critical to the overall success of this proposal. It was ultimately a small percentage of citizens that felt they would have carried the burden of the proposed fees without any direct personal benefit. This small group and their representatives were enough to cause the state legislature to stymie a vote on the plan and thus caused the missed deadline. A central conclusion from this analysis is that winning broad public acceptance of congestion pricing or mileage-based fees will require convincing motorists that pricing is in their own best interests. Given the ability of motorists to put a halt on pricing through the political process, these programs need to be formulated so that drivers see fees or tolls as benefiting individual drivers. Sacrificing for the greater good is not a compelling enough argument, especially when those called upon to sacrifice see themselves as not benefiting near as much as others.
The complete research material discussed in this podcast can be accessed via subscription to Elsevier. This podcast was brought to you by the Leonard Transportation Center at Cal State University San Bernardino. Visit our website at leonard.csusb.edu to find even more transportation and logistics information. Thank you for listening.